Good evening and welcome to the Monday, September 21st, Board of Selectmen meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 and ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I had your granddaughter in class today.
First is a review and the approval of the consent items. We have an account payroll manifest of September 22nd, 2020 in the sum of $43,823.62. We have a payroll manifest in the sum from September 24th, 2020 in the sum of $61,207.54. Do we have any items members would like to remove from consent? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Larry,
Second.
second by Mr. Pinciero. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion carries 5-0-0. Are there any other items of business members would like to have added this evening? Hearing none. Public input will occur no earlier than 6:45 p.m. The first item of business is the approval of the September 21st, 2020 meeting minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minute meetings?
Yeah, I did that one.
Do we have any questions? If we don't, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
I have a question.
Motion.
No, Mr. Lynch has a question.
The minutes we have here tonight that you gave us,
Yeah.
it says a meeting date at 8/24/20.
Which, do you all have 8/24?
Yeah, it's a paper copy.
No. So that would be, our last meeting was what, 9?
Yeah. Well, I know it's
and
wouldn't be
8.
8.
So those ones never got signed though, so they should have been in the, whatever. You can hold on and we can do them again next week then.
Okay. I'm just saying, I'm reading the minute date.
Yeah.
You get a prize, Kevin.
I actually read them.
The booby price.
So the printed copies were the incorrect ones?
Yeah, so I think it got mixed in because the 8/24 never got
Got all the
three signatures. So when I must have went over and copied them, I meant to just put them in the signature file. So the wrong ones got copied.
All right, so we will put that aside until next meeting for the approval of those meeting minutes. The next item is the food cart at Mel's Funway Park. Due to a conflict of interest I have with my daughter being employed by Mel's Funway LLC, I'm going to abstain from the conversation and any votes, and I'd ask Vice Chairman Larry to please take over.
I'll abstain myself.
It was brought to the planning board last week. Mr. Lynch, you attended. Can you give us a?
I'll give you an update of what happened there. They wanted to relocate this cart that we allowed to be there till September 20th. There used to be food carts on that side before, along the front side. This is still going to be on the front side. He wanted to extended it to the end of Spooky Will, which would be 6 weeks. He'll be there. Normally, the restaurant would be open as well, but since there's no restaurant, that's why things are going the way we did the first time. We as a selectmen agreed to do it to the 20th, which we figured it would be all set, and hopefully something would be in the mails, but it didn't occur. So we suggested that they go back to the planning board. In order for that to happen, we have to send it out, notify everyone, have a public hearing and everything else. And the board, I said, there's no way you can actually do it. And that's what I told the gentleman in the board chair that night. He's asking that we extend it for November, I want to say 2nd at the most. I believe, Jack, you're all familiar with this, when they have that after the Halloween, they got a day after for the employees. And they used to have food carts out there all along. They just omitted this on their up-to-date site plan. Because the other plans they did, they never really put the food carts on the plan. They put food vendors along the front. And that's what they did. Okay? There's none on the front now, except for that one. The rest are all going to be in the back.
Is that still down?
It's going to be down,
If it is?
correct. And they got some other ergonomics, I'll call it, with Spooky World in relation to people on the wagons used to pack them. Now they got to be a little separated and stuff. Okay, so they can wear masks and all this fun quality stuff we wear every day. So they're just trying to relocate this one. Okay, and I think the owner is here, Ed.
Yes, I'm here.
Is that Dean still here?
Is that correct in what I'm saying so far?
Yes, you are correct that it had been one previously that it was omitted from the plan this year. Correct.
Okay,
There had not been one in 2019, which was the reason why it
Correct.
got omitted in this year's plan is because they forgot to add it back in from looking at last year's.
correct. And it was just an omission. And they're gonna go back to the board and correct it to get it back on the plan this winter for the following year, so it'll be all set. So,
Correct.
so they come back to the town and say, can we not enforce the regulations for another 5 weeks or 6 weeks? Which we have done already by allowing him to be there because there's no restaurant again. Let's go back to the fact that the restaurant had not opened and no one really wants to open one. So these food carts are just people go out vending, some of the, like any place else. And they got a place they can sit and separate themselves and eat outside.
So what was the planning board's,
The planning board's reason for not doing it, if they got involved, they would have to send it out to a public hearing. Notify all the butters for a change of site plan. You're talking 4 weeks at least. Okay?
okay, our original extension,
Was for September 20th,
September 10th.
10th, excuse me.
90 calendar days from June 12th.
Yep.
So if they had went back to the planning board on June 12th,
They admitted it in the last plan. They forgot to put it on. That's
no,
what
I
this is all about.
understand, but they came to us on June 12th
Yep,
and we gave them a waiver for 90 calendar days
correct.
starting June 12th. If at that point they had gone back to the planning board, there would have been plenty of time for them to go through the planning board.
Disagree because they were doing everything else to get the plan. They omitted it by mistake because there's one on wheels.
No, I understand.
That's what happened here.
I understand. But if they had gone back, if they understood that they omitted it, if they had gone back on June 12th to the planning board and say, hey, we made a mistake. We omitted this.
That's not how the history worked. They came to us in June to ask that they could put one there. And we applied to that. We're not enforcing the rules or anything because the restaurant was not going to open
For 90 days.
for 90 days. They did a compliance hearing. It's my understanding and talking to the engineers and stuff like too. They just forgot to put that on the plan that they submitted. And that was just done last 2 weeks ago?
They
Final
submitted
plan?
the plan 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
Did
okay.
they submit a preliminary plan?
No, okay, because they had changes they were doing all the way through. They're talking about the back section, get rid of the other thing in the rear. It's just an omission. In my mind, it's just an omission. Plus, they always had vendors out there in the past. Always. I know when I was here, they were always there.
Okay, I understand that. And I'm not an expert on how the planning board works.
Okay,
But
I good idea.
on June 10th, we gave them 90 calendar days. We gave them an extension. We're not going to enforce this for 90 days. I've got it right here.
Correct. And we gave an extension because they did not have a restaurant.
Okay, it doesn't matter what we did or what the reason was. We gave them 90 days.
Okay.
In my mind, they had 90 days to comply.
I don't agree with that, but that's okay.
Could I add one piece to the equation that might help with some of the timeline?
Yes.
All right. So what had occurred is when Mel's Fun Park went before the planning board for their final site review, which was, I believe, a meeting that took place the last week of August via the planning board. That's when the final plan for the 2020 Spooky World was approved by the planning board. It wasn't until that following Monday that we found out, based on meeting with the owners of Mel's, that food group had been omitted. So we as the officials were not aware that it had been omitted till after the August approval by the planning board. So which was the immediate next day is when I had reached out to the town manager because of that timeline. So, you're correct that, in June we got approved for the 90 days, but unfortunately, we were not aware that it had omitted from the final plan that went before the planning board the last week of August.
Correct.
That mean, just for the record, that's not the Board of Selectmen's problem. That's a problem with the owner of the site and the contractors they're working with.
No, I just wanted to explain.
I just want to make sure for the record, it's not,
It was
there was not an administrative error on our part. It was your team not communicating before final approval.
Well, it seems like
You are correct. Yeah, we're 100% at fault on our side.
Yeah.
From that standpoint, yes. I'm not saying that anyone did anything incorrectly from the town administrative aspect.
So if I may, it's the board's decision. I think that this board at our last meeting rightfully sent it back to planning board and asked for them to either take action or to provide us with some input. There is no action that they're able to do because you're talking about opening this up to amending the site plan. So I believe from what I've heard, it's come back to the Board of Selectmen. I think the planning board's fully aware that it's coming back to the Board of Selectmen. And it's up to the Board of Selectmen if you want to take the same action that you took this summer, where we're fully aware that setting up this food cart in a different location than what's approved on the site plan would be a violation of the zoning ordinance and the conditionally approved site plan. And the Board of Selectmen, through its inspector, is the enforcement officer. This board has the option of either enforcing those violations or, once again, agreeing to waive it and, being on record saying that if this is going to continue to be a practice next year, then you have plenty of time all winter to go back to the planning board, amend your site plan, but don't come back here and ask for any waivers. And I think that's a fair and reasonable action for this board to take, given the fact that I do believe that when the site plan was approved, it was a mistake on their part. I don't think it would have had an effect on the approval of the site plan. And of course, the COVID-19 just having an impact on the ability to serve food for this event. So that's my 2 cents on it.
And the planning board felt that way too, because by time cycle and the whole 9 yards, it was an omission in the last week. Okay, prior to the application coming in. And being, in my opinion, after having those units there all the time before. We have only one or two down there now at the most, one. Okay? Everything was moved to the food court section, but we always had one out in that section over there. But I remember putting the electrical and the gas feeds to them. Okay? When I first got here, it's been like that since I left until recently.
Is there anything else at Spooky World that is not in accordance with the site plan?
My understanding, they're in compliance after the last compliance hearing they had. And there's been a letter on that one.
It just seems to me that they came to us in June. We gave them a 90-day reprieve. It seems to me, and again, I'm not an expert on how the planning board works, but it seems to me that we're establishing a pretty bad precedent when we're allowing people not once, but twice to go against. To me, it's not letting the planning board do its job. And if we're going around the planning board, that's a dangerous precedent.
My thought would be that I agree with what Troy said 100%. I would be in favor of letting them have their extension, but have everything in order come next year.
They're not coming back
Because
here.
we've sat through this a couple of times over the last 2
coming back on
years
this.
where things haven't been up to snuff, and we've had to decide what we're going to do. But it's not the town's fault. It's obviously Mel's fault, and I don't have a problem with them continuing the way it is for the rest of this year, but I would like to have all their ducks in a row come springtime. That being said,
Call vote.
we'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we extend it to the end of Spooky World, which is probably going to be the 30, be on November 2nd at the most, if I recall. And those people who are associated down there, am I correct on those dates?
I think it's 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Hello?
Yeah.
Kevin, if you
It
click
is.
the link, there's actually a motion. right
So
there.
what's the 8 weeks? What would be the 8 weeks? What's the date? They should be able to tell you.
It should be
8 weeks from
It's like the
when?
9th of November.
Yeah, no, sorry, yeah, through November 1st, yeah.
Through
November
1st. Okay, that's what you're
Well,
asking.
I'm happy with that. Oh, I haven't got to that
Well,
part yet, you
it's
fancy
through
people.
December 1st, so it has to
Through
be.
November
November.
1st, correct.
Huh?
November. You
I
said
mean, November 1st.
Okay.
So it has to be a little bit longer, right? It's
Well,
through the 1st.
They may not use the ones on the outside that compared to the ones on the inside. You know what I'm saying? On the other part.
All right, well, we're
Okay.
entertaining a motion, so you want to read the motion?
I moved not to enforce the applicable section of the town zoning ordinance in potential violation of the conditional approval on the site plan to allow Dean and Flynn Incorporated with written permission from the property owners to utilize the same mobile food court that was approved, okay, to operate at Mel's this summer, but moving it slightly to the property according to the social distancing requirements needed for the hayride until the end of the 2020 Spooky World event. Okay, and further request that the conditional approval for the site plan be amended by the planning board before next season if the location will be continue to be used.
So we have a motion by Mr. Lynch. Do we have a second?
I'll second it for purposes of discussion.
Any discussion?
Now, this says the hours of operation 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Is that correct?
I don't have that in front of me, Rich.
I think they're at fall hours now.
Yeah, it'll be the operating hours of Spooky World, which is roughly from 7 o'clock, I think, till 11:30 midnight.
Correct. 7 PM to 11:30 PM?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Post.
All right, motion carries 2-1-2.
Thank you, gentlemen, and I apologize for having to tie up your time with this matter, and we'll make sure that it's rectified for next year so that we're, not going to be making such a request again. Thank you.
Please do.
You're welcome, and I'm pretty sure if you did try to ask any more, it's not going to work.
I agree. I agree.
We'll turn it over, back over to Mr.
Have a
Weber.
good evening.
You too,
Thank you,
thank
Mr.
you.
Larry. Next item we have is trick or treat and fire prevention parade. Mr. Brown.
Okay, so I just combined these two subject matters. We'll just talk about trick or treat. That one's for information purposes only. This week, New Hampshire Municipal Association is having a webinar. That will be Wednesday on the 23rd from noon to 1. And we do have our health officer and our police chief will be participating in that webinar to learn about the recommended guidance and practices that communities can give residents as they participate in trick or treat. So I believe that will be coming back to this board as soon as we learn more about it and have some input for the board to take action on, if any is required. But I'm sure that we'll be providing some guidance out there to our residents. And the residents are already asking whether or not we're officially having trick or treating. So we need to make them aware if we are or we're not, and if we are, what the recommended guidance is. The last meeting.
I just want to say I've been inundated with calls about trick or treat. I know everybody's thinking about safe ways to do it. I'm all for it as a past health official, and I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but have your safe practices. But of all the events that we have, most of them have a mask on.
Good one, Kevin. That's
Okay.
good.
Well, Chief Sergeant, was recently appointed as our police chief, and this is going to be one of his most difficult decisions to make, and it's coming up pretty quick.
Is he on the line right
I don't know. Maybe he's muted.
Hi, Chief.
So, and then the fire parade, I know the fire chief had mentioned that to you at the last meeting.
On cue.
Good time. There you go.
It's not
I don't believe the chief is joining us this evening. He just wanted to make sure that the board didn't have any concerns or objections. As the chief has told me, they have been conducting parades. We've had the birthday celebration parades, and we've had the 4th of July parade. So we've had parades, and with good communication with our community, we believe we can still have our annual fire truck parade as well for Fire Prevention Week. And they will definitely be, giving community guidance out there, asking citizens to make sure as they gather to watch the fire trucks pass by, that they practice good social distancing. So they plan on going forward unless for any reason the Board of Selectmen have any objections or concerns about it.
Personally, I'm 100% for it. I mean, 4th of July parade was executed perfectly with social distancing, the way people wanted to distance themselves from families and friends. And I'd say we should let them have it.
Do we know what it's going to cost to have the parade? Because my reason for asking that is when we did the 4th of July parade, the police department, I believe, was a zero financial impact because they used the officers that were on duty. And then the chief and the captain were there, and they're both salary, and they don't get overtime. But then we got a bill for
Supplemented by volunteers.
supplemented by volunteers. And it used to be in this town that
All
people
volunteer.
volunteer. Yeah, but,
We never get paid to go on a parade.
Might have been that call.
They shouldn't. They shouldn't get paid to go on a parade.
I think it's something to build community spirit and not to, not to gain overtime. That's just my own thought.
I agree.
Well, I totally agree with you.
I like the parade idea. I would just like to
I
see
like
them
the
volunteer
parade
for
idea.
We don't have
the
special
parade
detail.
versus.
I'll be honest with you, the day, when you have a parade, when you people coming, you may need police for certain things, traffic control, legitimate. But when you got a fire department just getting in the trucks and driving around blowing horns, and they're coming from other communities, okay? Thank you.
Mhm.
But we shouldn't be paying our guys to have hourly wages out there driving a truck in a parade.
I don't remember him ever paying.
Ever. Same here.
Ever.
Yep.
This is something new if we are.
I got that right.
Especially in this climate where we've been stating all along that we need to be tight with money.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have a problem with the parade. I would prefer it be done with volunteers. I'm sure there are plenty that would.
Yes.
I couldn't agree more, Robert. I think it's a terrific tradition here in town. But I agree.
But we've always had volunteers driving the trucks, always.
Always. We never used to have to pay
Never
anybody.
paid, never.
Well, maybe
Do
it's,
I ever remember. it being
maybe it's
paid.
not an issue, maybe it,
Maybe it is voluntary?
yeah.
It's possible.
Do we know the answer to that?
I think in the past, we don't know really, but it would be,
Those
if we do
question
pay, it
marks.
would be, if we do pay, most likely it's the call firefighters that are operating the trucks, not the full timers. They're not
We should be paying them.
there being paid overtime. But again, this is, so I would have to
It's
just
an
get back to you
administrative role.
about that. But again, this is a department, this is part of the department. It's an annual fire prevention. It's a community event that the department's sponsoring. So it wouldn't be any different than any other department doing some type of community event.
Thank you. In other words, you said the same thing we just said.
Well, but I don't know is if they're volunteering or are they getting paid their
If you could investigate.
call
we'd
hourly
appreciate
rate.
it.
And an estimated cost as well.
Thank you.
The next item is the travel policy.
With COVID.
Mr. Brown.
Okay. So this computer fell asleep here. So one of the things, this came up, I know I introduced it last week. It's been discussed a couple times through our emergency management meetings. And it's basically a quick policy that has been reviewed by our legal counsel 3 times now because we've had some back and forth questions going on. But it's really about how we're dealing with our employees and communicating to our employees of restricting travel and quarantining them due to travel-related exposure to COVID or concerns. So it's based on the Department of Health and Human Services and CDC recommended guidelines. So as of right now, those guidelines and recommendations all exclude travel within the New England states. So if you're an employee and you travel outside of the New England states, then one, you're to notify your supervisor so that we're aware of it. And then before you come back, you're going to provide us with a negative test result, or you're going to quarantine for 14 days. The test results now we're learning, the turnarounds fairly quickly. A lot of times it can be done within 24 hours. So the chances that we were going to have to quarantine someone for 14 days is really minimal now. Back in March, it would automatically be 14 days. And so that's what we're going to do. Our employees answer a questionnaire also during each day that they come to work, and it's kind of not related, but it is. If one of them, actually say that, hey, they think they have some symptoms of COVID-19, then we're going to ask them to stay home and go get tested before they come back. So the only thing is when, because of, if they go and if they have to quarantine or be out of work, with the regulations are in place right now, they could be eligible for 80 days of 80 hours of pay if in fact they contracted COVID-19 and they traveled outside the state. If they've already used their 80 hours previously, then they obviously would not be eligible for that federal benefit. And again, this is, the policy states that we're encouraging you not to use any public transportation. Please stay off the cruise ships, the planes, the trains, the buses. And at the very least, you must notify your supervisor if you travel outside of the New England states. It's just for the protection of all of our employees.
So since we talked about this at the last meeting, has everybody had a chance to review it?
Now, when you say employees, are you talking about any employee, full or part-time?
Yes.
Would that include like call firefighters or?
Yeah, because the fire department, again, they're working really hard. Because of all of the call firefighters they have, they're working really hard at making sure that that they limit the possibility of the virus entering their workspace.
Have we had any employees during this period of time who have traveled outside New England?
We have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically, early on,
It was early
when
on,
all this was really new.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, they quarantined, and some of them quarantined for 14 days. And they were eligible for that pay. So that's an example of an employee that used, that benefit of the 80 hours. If for any reason they traveled again outside of New England, they're not going to be eligible for that benefits. That 80 hours is a one-time shot. And that, unless the federal government extends it, that expires December 31st, 2020.
And that is mentioned right here.
The only thing I saw there, and it's a question, and it regards a person using the time, the 80 hours, but I don't think it says anywhere that it is a one-time.
Well, it's when we reference the Family First Coronavirus Response Act.
Okay.
Then when you get into the fine print of what that is, which is really just an extension of the Family Medical Leave Act.
Yep.
It grants employees another 80 days. Okay. The only difference is family medical leave, you can take unpaid leave for 12 weeks. Under this leave, it's mandatory that we pay 80 hours, up to 80 hours.
Okay. But a one-time deal.
It's a one-time deal.
Another question, if he got tested, let's say once a week and came back clean, the first week, two or three times, and he comes back clean, can he come back?
If they show up and they're tested, they have a negative test result, then they're cleared to come back. They could develop later. They could start to develop some symptoms and everything again, and then they would be asked to not report to work. And
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, the getting a positive test result is in some ways a matter of timing, isn't it?
yeah,
I mean, you can be exposed, get a positive test result, or I'm sorry,
Negative.
get a negative test result, but then develop symptoms afterwards. So it's really almost better if you wait for a period of time, and I don't know how long that would be, like 2 or 3 days or 4 days before you take the test. but, but you can take the test and the next day you can be exposed again, you
Yeah, I
know?
know, it's
It's,
It's like having a
tough.
flu.
So it's,
So, I mean, that's why we're following the CDC guidelines because, they're monitoring closer than we are.
and we do have a practice where each day employees are asked to answer 5 or 6 questions, and it's all about the symptoms, or if you've had exposure with anyone that's had contact with COVID, or you've traveled outside New England states. So if someone did travel outside, they take their test, they get a negative result, they come back to work. Each day they're filling out that questionnaire. So, and we deal with it. We've been very fortunate. We've only had maybe 3 or 4 cases where we've had to, use the Family First Coronavirus Act.
and that was
And
early
sometimes
on.
it's been short. It hasn't been always been the 14 days. It's been different.
And was that early on, like,
Earlier on, it was automatic 14 days. It was just not, there was no testing.
Yeah, people
the
probably
NIH.
had reservations and paid
And
money.
everyone was like, you did,
Stay home.
you went to Boston?
I still wouldn't go to Boston.
So,
Okay. We're pretty lucky. Our department heads seem to have a good grasp on this and have it
Definitely.
under control, so.
Okay, with that, do we want to have a motion to accept the town of Litchfield COVID-19 travel and quarantine policy as written?
So moved. Second.
So we have a motion by Mr. Pinciero, second by Mr. LaSalle's. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
aye,
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion carries 5-0-0. The next item is earned time policy. Mr. Brown.
all right. Back when COVID, probably about 2 months ago, I talked to the board about our concern that the COVID pandemic was having on our staff and their ability to follow our personnel policy regarding earn time. And as you know, throughout this COVID pandemic, many folks had planned vacations and those were canceled. There were people that were supposed to go on cruise ships. They were supposed, I've heard stories about going overseas for a 2 weeks vacation. There was a lot of plans got disrupted. And in addition to that, just throughout the departments, there was a lot of stress on the departments. I mean, there wasn't, we heard, and I know I've reported to this board several times about down at the solid waste department and how they were just overwhelmed. They've expanded hours. I know in our town clerk office, they not only did they lose staff at a certain time in the pandemic, but with the whole voting and absentee, I mean, they were I wouldn't say overwhelmed, but obviously there was a lot more work involved trying to manage and plan the elections. That had a direct impact on people's ability to schedule time off. In the police department, fire department, same story. Police department, unfortunately, had an employee leave. They have still an employee on military leave. And we, a few weeks ago, we have an employee injured. So on top of the COVID stuff hitting, we also have regular ongoing business of work-related injuries and vacancies. So when I came to the board, you voted to grant sort of relief from our requirements until September 30th. And I communicated that to staff. And we've been monitoring, what people have been able to do. But we're still at a point here where I highly recommend, and I know I spoke to some department heads and they recommend it, that we lay out the following, which I'll suggest, to finish out this year so that we can clearly get communication out to our employees and say, this is the way it's going to be till December 30th. After that, everyone's aware. We've all been through this now since March, and we know it's going to go into January. You're going to have to start trying to plan accordingly for 2021. So what I'd like the board to consider, and as we discussed this is personnel policy and also union employees, so our police and our dispatchers. So there's about 4 things here. The number of accrued earned time hours shall be allowed to exceed the established maximum amounts until December 31st, 2020. So we have throughout the year, we have, depending on the number of years you work for the town, everyone's staggered. There are various caps of how many hours you're allowed to have on the books at any given time. The action the board took a few months ago was not to, we allowed them to exceed that maximum. And people have been working away at those maximums, but they're not all there now. You know, they still need more time. The minimum hours required to be used each year shall not be lost and allowed to carry forward into 2021. So we have a minimum hours usage policy. So each year, just for example, we say, Troy, you at a minimum, you have to use 80 hours. If you don't use those 80 hours, you lose them. So we'd like to say, hey, those minimum hours, they won't be lost. They can be carried into the next year. But there is a catch to it, and you'll see the bullet number 3. So for employees who wish to buy back unused earned time, the unused minimum usage shall not be eligible for buyback. So that is one little catch where we're saying, we're not going to penalize you for not using your minimum usage, but you're not going to be able to use that as part of your sellback, which comes up in November, the end of November. And then we say, effective January 1st, 2021, all employees and human resources employees shall follow the established procedures in union contracts and personnel policy. And then I would suggest at that point in time that if we have someone that we just manage on a case-by-case basis, if we have to. I don't think it will happen, but I'm a little bit concerned. In the police department, there's a possibility, and maybe one other department, I'm a little bit concerned. But we could deal with it on a case-by-case basis. But in the most part, I think this is fair and reasonable. It allows the employees it gives them, the next final quarter of the year to try their best to use up their time. And, but it also puts everyone on fair notice that first of the year, we're back to the written policies.
So is there a time frame within 2021 that have to use their carryover? That would also be part of the minimum.
So
right?
now
So
when you get into
over 20 hours,
so you
they
get
had
into
80
20
minimum. Now they have to use 100 hours.
So you're going to lose. So if you don't, so just say 2021, all the existing policies are in place.
0.
So when Karen rolls over your hours, if you have a maximum accrual of 100 hours, and on December 30th, you have 110 hours. When she rolls you over, you're only going to have 100 hours, except for those. Well, that's the cap. The cap is the cap. The minimum usage will roll over, but your maximum amount, you will have a use or lose it.
So this will set it where they'll encourage them to use the time.
Yeah, I would think
Don't
that
use it, they will lose
they're
it.
going to lose it. Anything over their cap.
that makes
So we're not going to, like I said, if your cap's 100 hours on January 1st, 2021, you're not going to have 110 hours on the books. You're going to have 100 and you're going to lose 10.
I have a problem with that.
But by the way it's written here, it says the minimum hours required to be used each year shall not be lost and allowed to carry forward. So let's hypothetically.
But you're still going to be subject to the cap.
So you're still subject to.
Still going to be subject to the cap.
So you'll just carry those extra hours. So if you were supposed to use 40, you only use 20, those extra 20 will come over. But if you're close to the cap, you're in trouble.
So there's 2 things going on.
Can't transfer
You got minimum usage and you got the cap.
You can't
So it's
go
gonna
above
force
the cap
people
in
to try to at least get
2020,
themselves so they don't
2021
lose
Can't
still.
anything.
I
They're
think,
gonna have to look at what they have versus the.
I think everyone's going to work hard to make sure they don't exceed the cap on January 1st, 2021.
I think if we just put the cap about 4 days after the election, things ought to calm down.
Oh, no.
Now,
Thank you.
let's say we have a case where a person is up there close to the cap, but the needs of the department demand that person can't.
And that's why I'm saying, I think then
We bring
we
those
deal with
cases
that
back.
individual on a case by case basis, because, right now in the police department, I can think of one individual, which, we may have to deal with that person on a case by case.
I mean, they're down with 3 people right now.
That person shouldn't be penalized based upon something beyond his control.
Being needed.
But it should be for all departments.
So, I mean, you got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, but I
definitely
just,
for all departments.
it is all department. I'm just saying, I'm aware that it's possible.
There are people
Because I got more going on in police. It's not me, the chief. We got a vacancy. We got an officer out on a work injury, and
Military deployment.
then the military. So you got three vacancies right
Sam
now.
ain't paying us for that?
What's that?
Uncle Sam ain't paying us for him
No.
being there? Okay, darn.
You're looking for approval.
We're told to
of
hold
this?
this job.
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
I'd like to make a motion that we go along with as Mr. Brown has voiced on the earn time, and allow it to go to
As stated.
December 31st.
December 31st.
December 31st.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Pinciero, second by Mr. LaSalle's. Any further discussion?
I have one, effective January 1st, 2020, all employees in human resources are exempt to that date. Are you?
Karen. In other words, what I was trying to say there is that human resources will enforce the existing
So
policies
just-
and procedures.
Shall follow established procedures.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that is his thing.
That means she's gonna crack the whip.
I'm all for it.
Any other discussion?
None.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion carries 5-0-0.
I'm praying for a vaccine.
It's when it does come out, it's not going to make it to the average Joe for a while.
The next item is the budget review for Recreation Commission, which is 4130.30. Mr. Brown,
Stay here.
I do not see anyone from the Rec Commission online.
I'm gonna cut them.
Okay.
Have they submitted one?
Yes, they have, and we have updated it.
Why can't we talk about it then?
It was, excuse me, it
Is
was
it 4130?
Might as well open it.
4130.30, but I don't think that is
Town meeting.
correct.
Yeah, that's town meeting.
I don't think that's the correct one.
It's 4520, right?
4520.
4520?
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
tell you, that typo guy. Who is he?
Cut and paste.
Cut and paste.
Cut and paste. Always,
It ain't working
always
either.
get you in trouble.
That's not working either.
4520.10.
Down towards the end.
Okay,
Got it.
perfect.
All right, so
So we don't have somebody here?
No,
no,
No?
we do not.
I thought
They're
thought
supposed to
I
be-
thought they were going to be here, so I'm not sure what happened.
Okay.
So I'll go through this. I know Chairman Weber is the liaison for recreation, so he's been at some of the meetings and heard some of the discussions. The custodian, obviously, we're just maintaining the hours that we have in the past. We have extra hours that we budget in general government that will hopefully cover any extra time. that's
Because
needed.
depending on what they do with Town Hall, that line item could get pretty high.
It could get high, and then
It could be low
it
too.
could stay the same.
Stay
you
the
know.
same. So
Yep.
that was the tough line on exactly, what's going to happen. Does it open? Doesn't it open? How much custodial time we'll need and so forth. So for the time being, they just left it at 5 hours per week.
Isn't that the same it had last year too?
It's always been 5
It's-
hours.
right,
per week,
okay.
Yeah.
So the custodial line is just for talent hall.
Just for talent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing that
He
rec
he
really
goes
has
around,
cleared.
Just
you
here
know,
and there.
when he pops in there, make sure the two bathrooms are clean, fully stocked, and then once or twice a week, he'll do a full mop of the hardwood floors and entryways and stuff.
So has talent hall been used this summer?
No,
The only time Talent Hall was used is when the porta potties were not available for a softball tournament. So they were allowed to come in through the side. It was roped off. They could not use the water dispenser. And then the softball program themselves, they cleaned the bathrooms after every game. That was the only time it's been used since March.
we have the portable
One-
toilets there now.
One softball.
It was one weekend tournament.
Yeah, the
And then the porta
pickleballs.
potties came in after that, and
No pickleballs going on at this time.
it's been nothing else.
It's been the most quietest place in town.
When do we anticipate opening that?
As of right now, the rec looked at not opening it at all because you can't really distance in there. I mean, if you tried to do indoor rec basketball, I mean, where are the parents going to really go? You have the stage area, so you really can't social distance. So it's been a struggle for the rec on what to do with Talent Hall, and also not knowing what we could do about custodial, cleaning it after each use. That as of right now, their action has been just to keep it closed.
There's a basketball facility outside.
There is. So right now, it really hasn't been an issue, but come, October, November, where the usage starts to really skyrocket, we're going to have to address it because there's pickleball, there's softball, there's
Yeah.
baseball, there's basketball, and there's a lot of groups that want to utilize it.
I was thinking mainly about pickleball.
Pickleball, that's
Pickleball
the
is less
biggest
intense,
usage.
less higher use the distance and they separation on the stage. There's
The
not
biggest
that
problem
many
comes
people
down to
there.
the cleaning of it.
Well, the janitor used to be doing that before.
Well, now with sanitation protocols by the CDC, we have to clean more often.
Okay.
But the pickleball is very good.
They are.
I can see pickleball.
I can see
They're
them.
very well. They're very organized, and I can see them having a discussion with the rec commission saying we're going to stagger our groups. They're going to be smaller groups. They're going to stagger them throughout the day, and they've been known for clean.
They'll clean.
Rolling up the shirt sleeves and cleaning and doing everything they need to do. So I'm sure that they would come in a group of 8, say, and separate, and after they're done, clean it,
They'll
and then
supply
another
it,
group
too.
of 8 would come in, and I think.
We just
That
got to be
will work out.
cautious because when we start going down the path for one group,
Yeah.
the next group's going
I
to
know,
do
they're
it.
gonna
Does
want-
everybody
When you get into
follow
kids-
the same cleanliness protocols?
When you get in,
a requirement.
when you get into kids being more there, okay, it's that type of follow up is harder. But when you've got a responsible elderly group, I'm going to say that nicely, okay, that's pickleball during the day, they actually spend more time cleaning it and when they're in there, okay.
Oh, and they've been very good to the rec. They've given a lot of
they've been very
donations.
good,
They've been
okay.
great. So that's where we're at talent. It's going to be another discussion we're going to have, rec's going to have moving forward as we get closer to the colder months.
So it looks like propane is up over there. Do we know for a fact that that's going to be, it's like $600 more? Am I
It's
reading that right?
so we've been based on just looking at the run rates that we've had, and this is a hard building because now we've even though the new system that we just put in really was a replacement in kind.
Yep.
I would like to think that there was some efficiency improvements because the old equipment is 20 years old.
So last year we ran on the temp
But
system.
we were, so it is kind of difficult this year. And so when you're doing your averages and stuff, I guess I do have that bad year.
Yeah, there was 3 years average use there in order to do it. But last year we had that portable system that lost control. Sometimes you'd go in there, it would be 90 degrees. Other days it was 50 degrees.
So I got
Some mornings it was 32 in there.
3,100, 34.
So between that and the toilet rental, those are the big jumps in their budget.
Yeah, so the big problem with the toilet rentals,
It's cleaning them.
We had a phenomenal rate that hadn't gone up in a long time.
well, you had right now what I'm carrying we had a really nice rate. We had $60 a month.
That's
And that
good.
was an old rate. The company was recently bought out.
Oh, no.
And what happened was when COVID hit, we had all the toilets removed.
Mhm.
And recently we deployed them back. Well, guess what happened?
They
The
jumped.
old grandfather rate was no longer honored. And now we also,
CDC cleaning rates.
so we also have the
Do it.
CDC rate, and I don't see that going away. At least I have to plan for 2 cleanings a week
Mhm.
for the summer of 2021, the spring, summer, and fall.
Can we put it out?
And
to
that's what I
bid?
put it there.
Can we put it out to bid and see if we get a better price? I mean,
Well,
'cause
it
they
was
jumped quite a
interesting.
bit.
I can,
Almost
but
triple.
it was interesting calling around trying to. Right now is a bad time anyhow. I mean, it was
Yep.
just trying to get rentals.
Yep.
There were people like we're backlogged three months.
Mhm.
They couldn't get units.
Yep.
Troy, if I remember right, that outfit we used, well, who was it?
It was Dave's,
Yeah, Dave.
and
said
now
it.
it's
Okay, Dave's,
United
correct.
bought them.
and now it's United.
United bought them?
Yes.
Oh, God. They've always been high.
Mhm.
I would look into better pricing. I know United's always been high. I've seen them on a lot of sites before. So I would look into see what you can get for better prices for them too. You're pretty good at that.
Yeah, I mean, there's you can put it out to bid, and because you got all winter to
Mhm.
to put
Good
it
place
out.
to sit.
And it sounds like we'll have quite a few units, right?
Yep.
Between all the fields.
Yeah, there's quite a few. You still got the list, right?
So you got 1,
You got
2,
Derek,
3,
Corning,
4, 5
Sawmill,
units.
5
Brickyard.
total.
5
More
total.
than more than that. You had one at the
For
school.
Roy Sawmill and.
Well, we don't do the school
We don't do
anymore.
the schools.
Wires. So who's using the fields then?
What fields?
At the school.
One.
There's no bathroom there. You got to have a
It's the
portage.
school's
on.
requirement to have them there.
Yeah, the
Isn't
rec
that-
commission doesn't do the school anymore.
And that one that was over GMS for a long time was actually
Wasn't
the
even being
schools,
serviced.
and it wasn't being serviced. Finally got pulled.
You can't use the schools and cut the fields down.
Now, there is one thing,
Supports
before we
for
got
that.
down to propane, I just wanted to point out, there is a new request from the Recreation Commission, and it's for clerical support. They're looking, and this has been, this has some history with it. For the longest period of time, they had a volunteer member on the Rec Commission that would actually take meeting minutes. And that person left a few years ago, and the commission really struggled taking the minutes. Then they were able to find Matt Sullivan, actually, that does our minutes, and he volunteered to do them. And at this point in time, I believe he's indicated that he's looking for some compensation. So that's why you're seeing a new line here with a request of $1,080, and that's to transcribe the meeting minutes, which is, my opinion, is fair and reasonable. It's tough. It's not a chore that anyone really enjoys doing as a volunteer committee member.
And Matthew's very good at it.
Yeah.
Do we have minutes of rec commission
Yes.
going back how far?
Hopefully they go back, for
100 years.
100 years. But
Is there a requirement to make state filings?
not that I'm aware of.
Oh, okay.
So it would average out to about $50, $54 a meeting.
Yeah.
20 meetings.
Yeah.
I don't think the content has to be to the detail we're looking at, and our meetings cost about $150.
It's $50 an hour.
Well, they watch. He doesn't attend, so he has to watch the video. So usually you watch the video, and then rule of thumb is it takes you about another hour to transcribe each hour of video you watch. Sometimes an hour and a half because you got to go back and forth. But
So all the meetings are taped in this facility.
yeah, you can watch them on YouTube. So they're all accessible through YouTube, our YouTube channel.
How far do those go back? Do you know?
Not when
Pretty
you
far
were on
back.
it, Rich. Not when
Well,
you
I
were
saw
on
one
it.
pulled from what, 96 the other day, right?
Yeah, the old fire
Yeah.
chief, the police chief.
Yep.
That one.
The old town discussion
When the
for
discussion about building the new
fire
police
station,
department.
yeah, from
and-
1996.
Deliberation and the discussion of this facility,
Yeah, in 96.
1996.
and
That must have been at Campbell. No,
No.
No.
GMS. GMS.
where at?
GMS.
GMS. Okay, wasn't it Campbell?
It's up on YouTube.
Yeah.
That was before Campbell.
Before Campbell, yeah, because Campbell was what, 2000?
YouTube goes back 7 years.
7,
20, you said.
20,
Currently.
20.
How many years, John?
20.
20, you said.
It goes back 7.
7.
Oh,
7.
It's all right.
Statutory wise, it was 7 years and 5 years.
And how many years of footage do you think LCTV has?
We have videotapes going back to the mid-90s. I have a student volunteer who's going through and starting to categorize and organize all.
Beautiful.
We've got VHS tapes, we've got DVDs, we've got electronic starting around 2015 or so. We've got some good history.
Okay, great. Thank you, Russ.
Okay, so what I'm seeing here. Notes, general, speaking, equipment.
So the toilets were an increase, and then your next really large increase was field maintenance. Well, it's not large, but it's $2,000 almost, $1,928. That's still sort of up in the air. So, that's in the process of going to go out to bid.
Again?
We don't know where that price will come in. I think it's going to be in that ballpark. So. So bottom line is they're
about 2,000, yeah.
$2,055.
You going, Jack?
What's the capital outlay?
See you, buddy.
Take care.
What was that, Rich?
What's the capital outlay?
The capital outlay.
Facility?
So right now, this year, it looks like they're continuing to purchase playground equipment. They started that effort this year, this spring, or was it last year? Last year. They purchased some new playground equipment, installed it. I know they did the wood chip. And so there's continued efforts there for that. It's been well received, actually, that playground equipment.
It has.
Where? At
At
Dara.
Dara.
Dara, yes.
It isn't getting burned down anymore.
No.
I'm sorry I have to leave, but I made an
okay.
appointment tonight.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Hey, buddy.
Have a good night.
Sit
Mr.
down,
Vinciero.
buddy.
Forgive me.
Yep.
See you later.
Okay, thank you. See you.
Behave, Jack.
So that's rec.
Okay.
Who's sitting there beside you?
The next item we have is the preliminary tax cap calculation. Mr. Brown.
So we're at this point now where, and again, I told you that until we actually have our tax rate set, it is hard to calculate exactly where we're going to be at with the tax cap. But we can do a pretty good guess. And so it's important for you to know that as we put together this budget and you folks have gone through and reviewed it, as we stand right now, it looks like we're about $141,879 above the tax cap. And we had that discussion last week.
Mm-hmm.
The number may have changed a little bit because we would have gone through and just maybe changed the revenue number or something, but that's about where we were at last week.
Mr. Chair, I've lost the internet by looking at.
You got your paper one.
That's in there, okay?
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. Thank you.
There's
for
a
letting me know.
default one and there's a proposed budget one. So
Label
they look
on the index
identical.
If I can see it.
they look identical.
They look identical. Thank you.
That
In
one
small
might be-
print.
They say
So we're looking
say
at the
That
default.
one might be
This one
default,
here,
I think, Kevin.
Yes.
Which one is which?
The smaller one's the budget.
Okay, the smaller one's the budget one, the one in Braille?
That's
Okay.
That's budget.
And then
I love,
the tax cap, I think, is gonna be the second page. That's default.
That's default.
and we're not on that right
So
now.
the small one, Richard, second page, if it's the small one, yep. That one
It's
there.
even smaller, Richard, on that page. So
And then I think it's the second page is gonna be tax cap.
I'm like Kevin. My
Sorry.
eyes are going.
Um,
And we even have a printer that does print large too.
Well, you gotta,
But when
it's,
you print it in the
it-
booklet form, you just.
it gets reduced.
Got little books.
So
like
that
how
should
he
be the
did.
tax cap calculation. And the tax cap would be the bottom line, 2021. So a recap of what we discussed last week, there's a couple items I'm concerned about that can have a direct impact on the tax cap, and that would be one, the highway block grant funding that we're going to receive for 2021, and the room and meals tax funding that we receive for 2021. And we think that we're going to get a better indication when we go to set our tax rate of, some direction as to what we should plan for 2021. But with that being said, and I know the states, they'll do their best to provide some guidance, but they have no ability to actually forecast it either. So we need to be on the conservative side. As of right now, on the revenue side of things, I have left the funding for the rooms and meals tax flat. It's the same funding that will be used when we set our tax rate in 2020. The highway block grant has been reduced. I've reduced it to $180,000, and last year is just above 200. So I'm thinking that that's, hopefully it comes in at about 190, but we'll learn the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'm sure, when we sit down and set the tax cap.
So the biggest questions we have are the two revenue streams and
Those two
insurance.
revenue streams. And then what you got left is your health insurance, your dental insurance, unemployment insurance, workers' comp, and property liability. Those could be large numbers.
Yep.
And that tax cap number could increase depending on what happens with revenues and insurance policies. That could go from 141,000, up to 200,000 or more. So I don't know, where we're going to go from here. We're going to be turning this over to the budget committee this Thursday. Is usually our tradition is that we give the budget committee a copy of the budget 1 week in advance before they begin review. I'd like to go through the budget tonight and just see if you had some thoughts of some adjustments you'd like to make, just to see what we can do to, if there's any adjustments you'd like to consider in the budget. I don't think you're going to accomplish meeting the tax cap this evening, but and I don't know if at this point in time we have to. The budget committee typically will start their review process, and when they do their reviews, they're not making cuts as they review the budget. They're going to review the budget, and at the same time, I think this year, because we're over the tax cap by so much, we're going to have to continue to come up with ways of reducing that tax cap.
Which we did last year.
Which we did. And, I think it's always, I like to see it be a team effort between the budget committee and the board of selectmen.
100% agree.
Now, the one way that we're going to hopefully accomplish this task, and put a good sizable reduction in this effort, is also dependent on how we do and our reimbursement of the grant programs that Karen has worked with department heads and submitted already. And the last submittal that she did last week was through the Gopher grant program. We submitted our last request. We went for all of the money, the remaining balance, and we added up all of our public safety employees' costs. And we're hoping that that's reviewed and approved. If we get that credit back, I think the Board of Selectmen can have a real good conversation with the department heads about what are some of the things that we need to buy this year, and what are some of the things that are in your proposed budget for next year that we could buy this year and take them out of the proposed budget. I even talked to the police chief, Chief Sergeant, about even the possibility of, is there a way that we could purchase one of those administrative cars? He believes that he can buy one administrative car, all fit up, purchased and fit up for about $31,000. Depending on what we have in our operating budget, depending on what we can get for some trade-in, and depending on some funds that maybe we could use from the special detail fund, maybe we could eliminate the need for the 2 admin cars, and we could leave 1 admin car. These are the kind of scenarios we can look at. And I heard the fire chief talk about purchasing hose. I heard that, there's some discussion in the budgets about purchasing radios, both in the police and the fire. And those are large cost items. So,
Get out of the budget.
so those are things I'm really hopeful that we're able to take a look at. As well as, I know the budget committee is really, really good at going through and finding $500 here and $200 here. And at the end of the day, it starts to add up.
When the scissors come off.
When will you have some better numbers as far as insurances and so forth?
I don't think we're going to have good numbers until about mid-October.
Should have our tax rate pretty soon though, right?
Our tax rate will definitely, it better be set before mid-October, but hopefully COVID doesn't have an impact on that. In order for our tax rate to be set, the states needs to have calculated these 2 revenue sources and a couple other things.
Well, things that are negotiated in the contracts, like salaries and benefits and whatnot, I mean, they're off the table. You can't touch those. But to me, anything else is on the table to get under this tax cap.
And the other thing that's not reflected in here is the new police union contract, because
It's
that
not.
expires in December.
So, I'd like to be able to next Monday,
Cars will be gone.
I could come back with this board and have just go through this budget one more time, and maybe just going through a second review and come back with just some suggestions. One of the things Karen and I were talking about today is that, we were carrying the regular fuel, our gasoline fuel, at $2.50 a gallon.
Just come down.
Maybe we can revisit that. We're purchasing it right now under $2 a gallon. Again, we're budgeting, 2021. The information I found on forecast is that it's probably going to be around $2.28 a gallon. We're budgeting $2.50. And sometimes just, taking a look at those estimates, that will net you some money. I can work with the highway, the road agent, take a look at some of the stuff he had budgeted for vehicle maintenance. We were hoping to increase that line. But, we also, I believe we have a capital reserve fund that can be used to help with these unexpected repairs. So there's some funds available to tap into if we have some unforeseen repairs that would exceed our budget.
So without warrant articles, we need to somehow find 2 to 3%.
Yeah. And another thing that you'll hear next Monday night, any revenue source that we can generate will help you. That's a positive. And the building inspector will be attending virtually, and he wants to talk to the Board of Selectmen about looking at the fees that we charge for all of our permits. And it's possible, if the board's interested, he's got a proposal that could increase our annual fees, and that could be as much as maybe $20,000 or $30,000 more in revenue a year. And that would go when you increase your revenue projections, that's a direct decrease of that $141,000 over the tax cap. That decreases it by whatever you increase your revenues.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is, I just want you to be aware, and I think Chairman Weber mentioned this, is that as we talk about warrant articles this evening, when the first question that the residents will be voting on is the operating budget, and we're going to tell them, this is what it is, and this is the tax impact, and that's the big question, and how we put that budget together to meet the tax cap. It's going to be difficult to meet the tax cap. So now, any warrant articles that you have where you're actually going to raise and appropriate money, and you have no offsetting revenue, that is going to be a tax impact. And the budget committee, they may be in a position where they're not going to be able to support the article because it's going to exceed the tax cap.
That is common practice.
Any warrant articles this year that propose to raise and appropriate money and has a direct tax impact, those will be, my guess is that they will not be recommended by the budget committee. Not that they don't support it, but
They legally
that
can't.
they legally can.
We can't do it.
Of course, they could always go and reduce the operating budget more, and so that they could support an article that they want to support.
So the tax cap statute is a combined operating budget plus any warrant articles.
Yes.
Okay. So we have to reduce 140 plus thousand, assuming what we have.
Right.
Plus, we have to reduce, if we want to add any warrant articles, that has to come off that in order to make the tax cap.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see in the warrant articles too, there's a couple of them that are asking for plow trucks and fire trucks and backhoes. I mean, I have a hard time supporting that when we're so far over the cap as it is. And I know some of them are gonna come out of the funds there that we already have. But still, I mean, we can use that money probably better off in other areas if we need to versus buying new equipment. We've got good equipment now. But that's probably gonna add up quite a bit. Just one of the trucks is $100,000. I mean, the backhoe's at what, 125? I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that backhoe.
Yeah, I think everybody needs to understand that we're in special circumstances right now. On the revenue side, and that's the problem that we have, is the revenue side. And, that we're just gonna have to postpone anything that we possibly can.
The rooms and meals tax is gonna be very low this year. We already know that, basically with the shutdown of the borders. Okay, and no one's going anywhere with their car. Except for the mountains. Ooh.
And, it was known,
Yep.
but I mean, just remember too, just right out of the gate, putting together this budget this year, you have a new line item in the amount of about $150,000 for your first payment on the radio communication tower.
And you got
That
the
was
firehouse,
not
too.
there in 2020.
And you got the
So
bond.
you have a tax cap of, no more than $175,000, and I know this is your net. But right out of the gate, you have a new payment of new cost of $150,000.
And the New Hampshire
Two of them.
retirement was another, 73,000. So
So
those two line items right there were
there's a lot of moving.
tough.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Between the new firehouse and the towers, you got your bond issue, you got all that.
There isn't too much that's discretionary.
No. The firehouse bond, actually, we've been paying that now
Yeah. So
for
that,
2 years.
But still.
It's
that's
been in the
another-
run.
No, I know, but that's already been approved by the taxpayers, and it doesn't really have an impact when we calculate the tax cap because it was already in last year's tax.
And then we have the new fire hydrants for $45,000. I mean,
Yeah.
there's just a
Nice.
couple lines that are really high compared to what they were.
Since we don't use them, can we take them out?
Get the bucket brigades back.
Hell, we used to
So
draft to the
even
ponds.
even our default, but all right. So I don't know what you want to do. I think the best thing we can do it this evening is that you guys go through those paper budgets or the electronic budgets and see if you see anything. $200, $500, anything you
Okay.
can see. Email me, and Karen and I will kind of keep a running list of possible areas of reduction. And then we can talk about those Monday night.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a good plan.
I mean, what I looked through, everything looked pretty solid. It was pretty tight. My issues were in the warrant articles. I mean, just in the vehicles, it's almost $1 million. So, I mean, that's quite a bit when we don't have the money.
Yeah, the warrant articles, I've just been collecting them. So it's things that we've been talking about, things I've had discussions with department heads about, things I thought up myself,
Yep.
and then things I've heard at the CIP discussion. So that's why you have so many, and they're just all there. I'm just trying to capture all of them.
There's a lot of them we're just not gonna be able to bring forward at this
Yeah.
time.
I think I have everything that we've discussed and I'm aware of.
Well, correct me if I got this wrong. Under the proposed no tax impact articles, you using the unassigned, the backhoe doesn't affect the tax rate.
Well, you want
That's what it.
to go through warrant
Are
articles?
are we done with default budget so we can move onward?
Yeah. I mean, the budget's tight.
I know.
I think
It's just,
department heads have done a great job with their budgets.
right, so let's all of us, if we can, take a look at it over the next week, report back to Troy with anything we see. But I agree with you that it's pretty tight. But let's go through it, and even if we can pick up a couple $100 here and there.
Mhm. Okay.
So next item would be the draft warrant articles. Mr. Brown.
Okay, so I kind of broke them up into categories for us, just so as we're going through and talking them. The first article, number 2, operating budget. I've not populated a number there yet. So that's a placeholder for the operating budget. The police contract, we know that we will be sitting down with the police department membership at some point in time. And hopefully we come to an agreement. And if we do, that will have a tax impact. Unless we do really, really good at negotiating.
Are you watching, Ben?
He's listening.
Article 4.
I'm looking at
I'm
Article
driving a green
4.
Toyota pickup truck.
What?
Article 4, the town clerk full-time position. This isn't this is a new one for we haven't had this yet on the draft warrant. This would take that part-time position that we have right now and upgrade it to a full-time. As you can see, it really isn't much cost to take that position from part-time up to full-time. So unfortunately, though, there will be a tax impact, $9,500. That's the best estimate for the first year. And then always trying to be full transparency here and saying, hey, the full impact of this, the next whole budget year, be right around $18,800. And so that's there. And then we have the fire truck lease. That's something you're going to hear more about at the CIP presentation Monday night, and there's a public hearing Wednesday night, which will be virtual. And hopefully if you have time, you can log on, listen to that public hearing. But there will be a presentation to the board as well Monday.
It'll be the same presentation on the 28th to the board.
Yeah. And this would replace the tanker. We're proposing, it looks like it's going to cost around $682,000. We're proposing that it be an 8-year lease purchase.
And we actually pulled this warrant last year.
Because of.
It wasn't the right time to do it. With everything we had last year, we had to pull a couple. We
No, we
pulled
didn't.
that, and we pulled the milfoil at Dara. Yeah. Was there another one we pulled? I thought we pulled 3 last year.
I can't remember. There was another one.
There was another one I thought we pulled.
And typically what happens as we get closer to right around Christmas time, and I know what articles are staying, what are going, then I start to engage the company that I use for lease financing, and they'll do some actual schedules, financial schedules for me. So those payments, annual payments of $95,103, that's just me using a simple calculator, loan calculator. And the next 2 articles, this is coming right from the CIP plan, is a plow truck lease purchase. These are identical articles but we're looking to replace one truck, which is the old 2000 state surplus international plow truck. So that's what this would propose to do. It's proposing to replace that truck with the one that we've just purchased recently. So it'd be a medium-sized, heavy-duty truck. It's 4-wheel drive. It would have a plow. It has a salter, and it has a wing, but it does not require a CDL license to operate. And we think that will give us more flexibility in finding operators, either through our own department or outside contractors. The next plow truck, the discussion is that we're trying to move in a direction where we have trucks that are designed and meet the needs of our plowing operations so that we can easily go out and find operators. We find that it's probably easier to get an operator than it is to get an operator with a truck that has the wing plow, the front plow, and the sander. In addition, this truck would help address the growth in the town that we've had in the past, and as we know, coming down the road here very quickly in the future. So the Weatherstone development and Firefly across the street here, and there's been other developments over the last 5-8 years where new streets have come on, new homes, new families, but we have not increased the number of plow trucks that we have either through contractors or our own fleet.
I thought the truck we just bought was to replace the old state truck.
Well, we had 2 old state
2
trucks.
Orange ones.
Well, one of them was supposedly still good and the other one was on death's doorstep.
The one that we're looking to replace is a 2000 International, so it's about 20 years old right now. It was the one we have was the best out of the 2.
Mm-hmm.
Both trucks, well, one is gone now. So I mean, this one here is it's not reliable. I mean, it's something you don't know if it's going to pass inspection. You don't know what type of repair work you're going to be faced with. It's just something you can't. At some point in time, you got to replace it. You cannot rely on that during storms, snowstorms.
Craig, you're going to get another 20 years out of it.
Yeah.
But these are first responder vehicles. These are public roads, opening them up for people to travel, for our fire trucks, ambulances, police cruisers. These are not trucks that are being used for private camp roads or the Walmart parking lot.
Mhm.
These things are out there when the snow and ice starts to accumulate, and they don't leave until, hopefully, they don't break down. They don't go back in the garage until the storm event's over. So it's a different, there are people who could use this truck and get another 5-6 years out of it. But for what we're doing, the purpose that we need it for, we need reliable, dependable trucks. I don't have a number yet for the human services and health agencies. We now, for the last year, 2
years.
we've had a warrant article where we ask the residents if they want to raise and appropriate X amount of money for groups like the Red Cross and Meals on Wheels, and other types of services, agencies like that. General Assistance Expendable Trust Fund was just created last year. We have a balance right now of $8,925. So depending, again, on what type of activity we have over the next few months, will be whether I recommend that we actually go and try to replenish this fund or not. I
What was
think
it
right
funded
now
at?
that we're charging the expense so far, we've charged the operating budget. So really, the fund has $10,000 in it.
Okay.
And I probably wouldn't, request the $1,000 from the capital reserve fund. I would absorb that cost in the operating budget.
So this was funded at 10,000
It was
last
funded
year.
at 10,000 last year. And as you can see, we spent, about $1,100. But that's been charged to the operating budget, not that capital reserve fund.
Okay.
I have the option of requesting the trustees to, credit the $1,100 back to us. So then you have no tax impact articles. So this would be using the unassigned fund balance. The road improvements, this is the first year where we've had discussions trying to bring this warrant article back. It would be asking that we use $200,000 from the unassigned fund balance for 2021 paving. So I'd like to see that stay. If there needs to be some compromising on it, the amount could be reduced.
Because we could reduce it and
Could
help by
reduce it.
getting one of the plow trucks.
You could reduce it to 100,000. We get our block grant money. Now we got about $300,000 to do paving. But again, we've always discussed the CIP plan has it. The draft CIP plan has 200,000. The thought process on the backhoe was that this piece of equipment, although I think only 10 years old, is still, because it's used every single day by the solid waste facility and the highway garage. It is it's a workhorse for both departments. It's a multi-purpose type vehicle. So in the solid waste department, they're using it all the time to compact the different containers they have down there. They move material with it. The highway department during snow operations, this is the vehicle that's used to put the sand and salt in the vehicles and the trucks, because the front end loader has a plow on it and that's out plowing streets. And then of course, just every single day there's a use for it. So we're at the point with this piece of equipment where we believe we can get a real good trade-in value on it. We can avoid some of the costly maintenance costs that could happen over the next couple of years. And we can, because of the municipal pricing that we get, the state bid price, we get good trade-in, we get a good purchase price, and we get something that's basically warranted. Hopefully we can buy an extended warranty. You got something that you can just run and really no maintenance for the next 3 to 5 years. We also would like to use $20,000 from the recycling revolving fund. So my math doesn't work here, but that's because Dave told me he wasn't going to give up 25,000. I didn't make the adjustment accordingly. But the thought process is that we would use 100,000 from the unassigned fund balance and 20,000 from the recycling revolving fund, and we would get a quote from Caterpillar on really what they would give us for trade-in and what we could expect the purchase price to be.
Would that be a lease purchase?
So we're looking here, this would be a cash purchase. That's what we're proposing, because we're going to try to buy it with cash using 100,000 from the unassigned fund balance and 20,000 from the recycling fund.
I'm just thinking interest rates are as low as they're ever going to be. Does that make lease purchases more desirable less expensive when you have interest rates so low?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good time. You're probably a good time to purchase something. You think that you're going to get a good competitive price on the purchase, and we're going to get a good low interest rate. I think what I'm looking at here is, every time we add another lease purchase,
We have a
then
tax cap.
now we've got the tax cap, and we've got the added expense, over the next 8 years, and trying to avoid that.
What year is the current backhoe?
So it's a 2010.
So it's 10 years old.
That's all?
It still has a good trading value to it.
Is there an hour meter on that? Do you know?
There is, and I don't know the
If you could-
hours.
If you could come in with that hour meter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because if they're properly maintained, they'll run forever. I saw it, 1956, I think it was. It was still listed for $20,000 on Uncle Henry's.
Yeah,
Heavy equipment.
Maintenance is key with them, but they'll run, and they'll run for a long time.
Is this a diesel that we have?
Yes.
Yeah, the hours are pretty key on that.
I questioned that on my notes here, the hours, how many hours we had on it. I was asking him that. He was going to get a love letter from us.
all right. And then the Technology Communication Expendable Trust Fund, when that was initially established, we established it with $50,000 balance. So this is more of a placeholder. It's not something that I've discussed this with Mr. Brunel, and I don't think we would want to have a warrant article trying to cap the fund off using, $12,000. It's here only as a placeholder right now, in case between now and when this warrant's finally approved, if for any reason we have to tap into this fund for any expenditures. And one of the concerns is there is a possibility with some of the things that have been going on with the radio communication tower construction project that there were some costs involved with the Colonial site that were not planned. And the plan up there was not to construct a tower. It was going to be attached to the water tower. But there's been other things that have been subtracted, this and that. So, we don't know yet.
So we should know better come
So
December.
it's a placeholder, and I think it goes away unless we have to come to this board and ask for permission to expend from it to help with the cost of the radio communication tower project.
How much do we have in the fund now, Troy?
Right now, you would have
38,000.
$38,000. Yeah.
$76.86.
It's like, where did you get that?
Carmack.
I conjured that up.
Yeah, Johnny Cox says.
You look at the back page too? Oh, we can't read it.
I don't think you have the warrant articles there, Kevin.
Okay, then Article 13. This is a new one. Property Revaluations Expendable Trust Fund. So this would be an article where we'd ask the citizens to establish an expendable trust fund to have funds available once every 5 years when we have to do that property revaluation. And I'm proposing that we establish the fund. We use $25,000 from the unassigned fund balance to fund it. Thought process here is that this article would be on the warrant for the next 4 years, and that we'd start saving money to cover the cost in the update year. So the contract we just signed, remember, it was like $25,000 a year, and then the last year it's about $100,000 to do the update.
Do we go out to bid each year, every 5 years on this? Or we stick with the same assessing?
So this town has had a history of not going out to bid and sticking with the same assessor. So right now, we've just signed a contract, at least for the next 5 years. So and that's the discussion every 5 years that, you know, a board should have, because if you're going to switch companies or go out to bid,
Costs
you
more.
do it after you've done your update.
Yep.
But like I said, we've had this company for some time. The software that they own, we own, and that doesn't mean that you can't use another vendor.
That was a recommendation of the tax
It
collector.
does. It works a lot better when you're using the vendor that has their software. There are people out there that can bid on this work and they can operate this software.
I would have liked to seen another bid, which is why I voted no on it. At least one more bid, just to see if they're being real with us on that. A lot of times people get cozy with their contract and they feel like they can charge what they want. But
Well, in my case, I got a love letter this week and handed it over to you all.
Oh yeah. And then there's another article here, another Article 14, Health and Dental Care Expendable Trust Fund. And this goes back to the discussion we had with the library trustees and just the town in general about, you know, our budgets are pretty tight. We know that the library budget, we have an agreement with them that during mid-year, if something changes in enrollment of their employees with health and dental, that if they're not able to absorb that cost in their operating budget, then we would cover that until the next budget year. That scenario can actually play out with us. Our numbers, you know, we're a little bit bigger than the library, so this has happened to us, but we've managed to absorb those increases, because sometimes you have a decrease, you have an increase, depending on open enrollment and stuff. But this is a direct discussion that this board had about establishing a fund that could be used to help with unexpected costs. These would be town costs, not the employees' portion. And again, there'd be no tax impact. We would use the unassigned fund balance. Article 15 would be
on that again, though, for future purposes, they're going to absorb the cost, right? Or is it still going to be on?
So
the
what
town?
they're going to do is they've budgeted for 2021, knowing that this cost has occurred now. They'll plan accordingly and they won't ask. But if they have something changes, another employee in July next year, they're going to come to you.
Well, they should have it in their budget,
Yeah.
so that we don't have to do it. I would think.
But I think
But it
it's
affects our bottom line either way.
yeah. So I think that's kind of goes back to the discussion that
I know they
way before my time and your time.
Understanding memorandum.
This board,
understanding.
yeah, that's what created the MOU.
Yeah.
I think the same discussion occurred, my guess, about creating this expendable trust fund to cover these costs. And I think the ultimate outcome was the board said, you know what? If something like that happens, we'll just cover the costs until the next budget year. But as you can see, that MOU is going to cost this town, our budget,
Yes.
about $26,000 this
Therefore,
year.
if we had this trust fund, we could play out, we could
I
fund it
would
out. of that.
use this.
But they should have a cushion in their budget to take care of it, I would think.
This would be shared. So this is written for town and library employees.
Yeah.
It would be for both.
But they're their own entity, though. They're not, right?
They fall in our
But they're under our budget.
Yeah.
You know, they have their own, but it all plays into ours.
It's like
Part of our increases, their increase in our budget.
So you still would be agents to expend,
Mhm.
not the library trustees.
Mhm.
So any expenditure out of this fund would be approved by this board, not the library trustees.
You know, the library for years, everybody thought it was run by itself.
Hmm.
Really, the libraries are not like they used to be. With the internet and everything else, they don't get the revenue as much as they used to. So you got that coming on to them.
No, I'm not saying it's not a worthy
Yeah.
budget item. It's just that it would seem to me that it would come out, be part of the library's budget and not the town's budget.
They can figure out in their line item somewhere, yeah. It's all about procedure.
Article 15 proposes to create another expendable trust fund. It would be for recreation facilities. This is strictly my thought. This is a recommendation from me. It's based on some discussion, preliminary discussion that I know occurred at the rec committee level. And that discussion was about having a warrant article that would be specifically for improvements to Talon Hall and I think Roy Memorial Park in general, but really specifically for Talon Hall. And to start addressing, well, we know we had a warrant article last year that asked, hey, is there any interest in building a brand new community center? And that was turned down. So I think that message was pretty clear that we need to start making sure we
Take care of what we have.
take care of the Talon Hall and what we have. And there's a couple of things going on in Talon Hall. There's questions about the floor. It needs to be resurfaced. There's questions of whether you can resurface that floor, if the truss system or wave floor
Structural
joist can
questions.
support the weight. So I think there's some structural engineering analysis that needs to be done. The floor needs work. The exterior of the building needs painting. If you went into that building right now and you saw some of we have old electric baseboard heat system that I don't even know
They're
how
all
it
in
gets
the
turned
bathroom.
on, how it gets turned off. And, there should be some work done on that.
The porch on the back of it.
The porch in the back, which we got some good news that may get addressed.
Yep.
But again, material costs is the town.
Correct.
And then there's some discussion. This article will be written so that it's, there's any of the facilities. So I've had some preliminary discussion and thoughts with just changing the way the whole fence is, the security fence system down there, and the way people are going through the gate, getting down to the pond. If there's a way we can open up access better so people can get closer to the pond, they wouldn't, carry their kayaks or canoes, to get closer to the playground equipment, but still at the same time secure the facility from, automobiles entering and exiting. And it would be for all the parks. Sawmill Park, I know the contractor, Natticook, just, they made me aware of this. If you went down to Sawmill Park right now, the wooden bumper rails that we have around the whole park, it's time. It's starting to rot, and they've rotted and they've dropped, and you're going to need to
They
replace some of
fixed
those
some
timbers.
fencing for us this weekend.
You got tennis courts, you have rec facilities. So my thought was, let's create an expendable trust fund that's specifically for repairing, renovating, and replacing recreation facilities and buildings, and fund it with the unassigned fund balance. And again, the Board of Selectmen would be the agents to expend.
So based on all this, we're looking at about $417,000
From the unassigned
assigned
fund
fund
balance.
balance.
Based off the stuff that they wanted to have done.
Based off of these articles, the way they're presented this evening, that's what we'd be utilizing out of the unassigned fund balance. If we were to.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And I think
I'm
that's,
talking just rec.
No, Rec's only 50, so.
what'd you do?
I apologize. I was thinking just rec, because I didn't think we jumped off that yet.
Oh, you did. Good. Okay.
What did Karen say?
Yeah, that's my, I think that's a very good point. The auditors came in this year and they said we had a really good year. We've had back-to-back good years. And back in 19, we used $190,000 from the unassigned fund balance. In 2020, we approved $200,000 from the unassigned fund balance. This year, the auditors told us that we had an addition to the unassigned fund balance, the amount of just over $400,000.
What's the balance of it now? Do you know?
I want to say it's maybe, I don't know, 2.2. It's right. If you can look in the audit, you can. Why don't you bring it up?
My
It's,
mind's
it's in my
gonna take
folder.
it.
Finance committee, don't even know.
Hold on.
Can you look at it? Find it in the audit?
Can that be used to take care of some of next year's budget?
It could be. You do have that option. You know, that's one of the common uses of the unassigned fund balance is that you use it to directly decrease taxes. You know, it's a revenue source and it has a direct decrease of taxes. I personally, I don't recommend it. I like to use the unassigned fund balance to take care of one-time capital expenditures or establishing funds,
You find it?
expendable trust funds that will go towards future capital. The trap that you get into is that when I use just say we used right now, we could solve our tax cap issue. We're 141,000 over the tax cap. Well, let's use $141,000 from the unassigned fund balance. Problem solved. Next year we're sitting here and we're going to get more revenue, and the tax cap maybe is now 200 and something thousand over. And once you use the unassigned fund balance as a revenue source, you literally almost have to continue to use it. Now,
You're chasing yourself.
someone could argue with me and say, well, Troy, that's not fair because you're sitting here telling me that you're losing revenues in 2021 and it's due to COVID. And this is an unusual situation. But then what's to tell you that in 2022, things haven't recovered and things are even worse. And then 2023, things are worse. And we're going into this great. So there's no right or wrong answer. You just got to be careful. If you use it, it's possible that you create a situation where now you need to continue to use it for the next year. And you're going to still have capital needs. These capital needs are not going to go away. So where's the number? The unassigned fund balance on December 31st, 2019 was $2,248,000. And it increased $487,000 over the previous year. So we had a big growth. I put these articles here as options. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think we should spend $400,000 in the unassigned fund balance, and that's where I think I said, you know, some of these articles you may not support, and you know the real question is the road improvements. Can we sustain that? If we want to try to keep the $200,000 going, are we really able to sustain that every single year using the unassigned fund balance? Maybe not. So is the number 100,000? And we try to sustain that and still use the fund balance to do those other capital things as they come up throughout, you know, every single year.
We'll have to look at what roads are on for this year, but you know, my immediate response would be, you know, don't use 200,000, use 100 and take the other 100 and buy a plow truck. Because I think that's a larger need for us. And I'm very fearful that with the budget committee not being able to support it because of the tax cap, that may not pass. And I think that's a piece of equipment the town needs.
We need to sit back and discuss this a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got to
This
dig
is-
through it all. That's off the top of my head.
Because I'm looking at this whole thing and I'm saying the backhoe, the technology, the 12,000 is for anything that breaks in case. And I'm seeing all the things. I see where you're coming from, Steve, on that. The aging of the trucks, the simplicity of what they're trying to get done, it makes some sense.
There's absolutely no decision
You
required.
know, and what's
at
really, I
all.
think, also going
Weird.
to help drive a lot of this is when we get closer, we know what the tax rate is, we know what the revenue streams are, we know what the insurance comes. I think that's when we're going to really have to make the decisions on what we want.
Yep.
You know, start looking at them now. Which ones do we think are important? Which ones can fall off? So then we can look at the important ones and say, okay, how do we get this accomplished?
Yep.
Again, my first thought is eliminate the deficit and before we buy anything. I mean, that's just me. I don't like being in debt. We're
The deficit.
We're over the cap by a lot.
We have to pull that down.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we need to
That
do is
would be
get
the
to the
first
cap.
thing I'd use.
You mean 140,000?
Yeah, before I buy something, I would pay my debt down.
I agree that we need to get one that meets the tax cap.
And I don't know
Okay.
where we're gonna find cuts, because again, I'll say our department heads have been fantastic with not increasing. I mean, most
Yeah.
everything is salaries and benefits from what I'm seeing.
It's all fixed.
And and like I said, I normally, I've been on record for 5 budgets, telling the board, if you're going to use your unassigned fund balance, I think your auditors even tell you that, and they compliment you that you use it for capital one-time expenditures. And that's what I've always done. And we've seen our fund balance grow over these last 5 years. And at the same time, we've purchased capital. But with that being said, this is a different year.
Yeah.
It's a different year,
Yeah.
and I get it.
We don't know what's coming from the state.
And I'll say that you've done a great job managing the fund balance. I mean, it's exemplary.
It's extremely
The
healthy.
time that we're in right now, I mean, and we don't know where it's gonna go next year. You're absolutely right on that. But, I mean, I don't know where we're gonna find that difference in the tax cap. If it's a one-time thing, I'm, we make an agreement that it's not gonna be an every year thing.
But we also could look and see, buy things this year, as we talked about earlier, that are on next year's budget. And can that get us $140,000 worth of stuff?
That's a possibility too.
Okay. So we're getting close here to the end of the warrants, and
You got 4 minutes. You said 8:30.
okay, we're getting close. Fire station bond proceeds. So I've done some research on this. We're getting to the point where at some point before the end of the year, I'm sure we're going to come back and report to you on that we're closing the bond out and maybe, earmarking whatever's left for a certain task. The one task that the fire chief and I are fully aware of is that we have promised the Bergeron family that there would be funding to do some beautification or restore the landscaping at the Roland Bergeron Memorial Walkway and Fund. So,
What has to be done out there, Troy?
well, we want to do something. The family had indicated, that when we removed it, everything was removed. So some kind of landscaping that would buffer it from the fire station, make it clearly separate. But also any landscaping that could be incorporated into the fire station. It could complement each other. So, but something that makes it, right now it's just there in the wide open with no bushes, no shrubs.
Is there any thought to relocating it over here in the center where the
Gazebo?
where the what?
Gazebo?
Yes.
Yeah, we haven't had any discussion about relocating, just
Need to ask the
thinking
family,
about
'cause
trying to.
that was done with volunteers. And no one saying we just did it. Okay, after Roland's passing. It was a good place to do it. I thought we were gonna leave some trees around it when they fires came in and raped the land, okay, around it, okay? And they should have put some thought into that. It is an area that we tried to keep it private. We didn't think the firehouse was gonna be that big in that area. But it turned out that it did. So now we may want to relocate it if we can, but we did it by volunteers before. And everything there is movable with the equipment that we have.
Yeah.
Okay. If had to be. But I would talk to the Bergeron family first.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Well, we both know him. We could talk to him.
Yeah. Mike and I, we all went to school with them.
Janie.
Yep.
I think Tim's out in Rye, so he's hard to get a hold of.
No, I get his number.
So one of the first options is that you don't need to even have a warrant article to close out the fire station bond. The interest that we've been earning on the bond, we do not have the authority to expend. So that's revenue that just comes into the town, to the general fund. And, you know, I think right now it's over $20,000 that you've accrued. And that's just going to be surplus revenue. The unused bond principal can be used to pay the principal on the loan. And that's just a simple vote of the Board of Selectmen. You don't need a warrant article. So we'd have you vote to whatever the unused balance is. And, you know, it may only be $3,000. And you would vote to authorize us to expend that unused portion to pay towards the principal. If we're going to use the interest, and the unused bond for another purpose that would be consistent with what towns can go out and finance using bonds, then you could have a warrant article. You could ask the residents, right, do you support taking the interest and the unused bond proceeds and using it to do this purpose? And you can do that as a warrant article, but it would take 3/5 vote, majority vote to pass. And I don't think we're going to have substantial money here that we're talking about that really, I think, warrants the need for a special warrant article. So I think that the best course of action is that, we allow the revenue that's been generated to go to the general fund. We didn't budget it for a revenue, so it'll just become a surplus, and it'll help at the end of the year when you close your books. It will just help become part of that number that helps grow our unassigned fund balance.
I have a question on that, Mr. Chair. If you're saying it's $3,000 for how many years? How much is the bond for?
3,000. What are you saying?
33,000.
30.
So the bond.
The estimated fund balance right now.
23,000.
So
Right.
I think, Karen was just telling me that I think now the unexpended principal amount is actually down to what, 3,000?
About 30 or 38, something.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So we got about 3,000 maybe left in the bond. That's
That's
principal. And we got about $23,500 that we've generated in interest. We can't spend it. It's just going to come in as interest.
But if we put that towards the payment of the red barn, okay, now would that help cut the?
You'd have to have a bond. You'd have to have a special warrant article, and it'd take 3/5 of the people to, approve it.
Purpose it back to the purpose of the building. It'll take 3/5. So in other words, it'll pay off the loan quicker
Yeah.
because there are other folks out here that want to get things done. We may have to bond for this. The less we have on the long-term list, be wiser to get that paid down.
So that's the thing. So if you want that, the interest funds to be used as a payment towards the bond, then we're going to need a warrant article.
Okay, then.
And
But if it saves the taxpayers more in the long run, paying it off sooner,
I don't know.
then that makes sense.
It's not. I don't believe that you're going to be able to prepay principal on the bond. I think you could use the 23,000 towards the 2021 payment
Of the bond.
because it's a bond and
Just
you
raise
can't
that.
prepay bonds. It's not like
It's not like a
Not like
it's not like a mortgage. You can't do it.
So you could use
In
that.
fact, I don't know how many years we have. It's some period of time before you can even consider refinancing it without penalty. So, but we could use it again, kind of help your tax cap here. If the people approved it, that'd be 23,000. But I thought of that and I'm like, well, you don't know how the outcome of the vote's going to be. So you really can't say that you're meeting the tax cap because you don't know what the outcome of the vote is.
So it's
But
better in the general.
But if the board felt more comfortable just being 100%, hey, here you go, guys. We got $23,000 of interest in this bond. Do you want to take this interest and put it towards the 2021 bond payment? And who's going to say no? Can't imagine anyone say no.
The bond payment in 21 is going to be what, $200,000?
100 and,
Something thousand?
Which means you pay it off sooner.
Well,
it
no,
won't,
just
it won't,
reduce
No,
that
we
payment.
can't prepay on the,
Yeah.
on the principal.
You can put it towards 2021's payment.
So you're gonna put this revenue against that.
But you're getting money back,
What's it under?
to
Debt?
go towards that.
Mhm.
It should have able
It's
to,
not showing.
it should be able to pay down the
Not showing
time
debt?
cycle.
No, it is. It's not, I can't. see the
You can
number.
use it towards
Oh.
next year. but
Principal
You can't put it on
long-term
the
fire
principal to reduce the
station.
amount of
At
the loan.
125 and 138.
So instead of raising 200,000, you
263.
only have to raise 180,000.
263
Something like that.
One,
Rough
125.
numbers.
and 138, but I mean, the
I'm
whole, the bond payment,
It'd be nice if you could.
125.
the annual bond payment
Yeah.
is $263,000.
I'm from the old school. If you got money to throw back onto what you borrowed per se.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you should be able to pay it down, but I guess
Mm.
they have these little games out there you can't.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll get language to do that.
Mhm.
And then, the board can still decide if that's what you want to do or you want to pull it, doesn't matter.
We have another, what, 18 years on that bond?
It's
Yeah.
20-year
It's a
bond.
20-year bond.
That's what I'm saying.
Paid two, right? Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I'm trying to figure out how to shut the years down. Unless we wouldn't think about it.
And then the solar, Article 18 is a solar exemption that we had talked about. This would, just so you know, so the way this is written, this would give a solar exemption. So I don't have a dollar amount or a percentage amount here. So that's something we're going to have to determine if it's going to be 100% of the assessed value or you're going to have 100% with a cap. Someone actually pointed out to me, I never really thought too much about it, but some of these systems are not just, they can get a little bit elaborate and and generate quite a bit of power. And, maybe it's not used just solely for that residential property. And we're going to give people, 100% tax break on that, or are we going to put a cap on it? So that's kind of a good discussion to have too.
It was my understanding when this came up, the solar exemption was for residential homes who put solar panels on their home or put the freestanding ones in the yard to cut the power use to their home. That was my understanding. They're the ones that looking for the tax, which I believe is a good idea because we're cutting down some other costs. We've come across that the solar panels now are getting a lot cheaper, but the house panels that they have are not working as effectively. Okay. But the freestanding ones that they've got more yardage where they can rotate with the sun. Those are working because they can make those more intensified. That helps a lot more than the ones on the roof. And it just goes offsetting their electrical bill. Okay, the cost. So they're not the grid. I'm not against the solar exemption. You just brought up a point where you get into commercial
Even residential could sell back.
and
That's what
then
I
some
was just-
residential,
Mm.
but you can control it where it just goes to that house. It doesn't go back onto the grid, but some does.
People can if they choose on a residential
Okay.
system.
Put it back in the grid.
Mhm.
Okay.
So that's why on this, we're probably going to want to cap an amount.
There's got to be a limit to it.
I think the state limits it to 1 megawatt. That's what the state limit is.
I mean, people spend a lot of money on these systems and they're doing it in part to save money on their electrical costs, but also a lot of them do
Environmental.
it because it's green energy.
It's green.
You got people who do it for all different reasons.
And then to get hit with to be taxed on it after the fact is.
The green factor is the more important factor.
But the also flip side is you chose to put an asset on your house. So that I see both sides. I mean, I live in this stuff all day long, so I see both sides of it.
But you might
Yeah,
have
in
people
your
that wouldn't
case.
buy your house because it's there.
Correct,
and
yeah.
they see it
So
as
it's a liability on that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially when you get into the roof ones, they don't want that because you got to take the roof, the shingles off. You can't get to the shingles.
Yep.
So the freestanding ones are being more pronounced now than the roof ones.
Yep.
And there was a time where they used to say that if you had to replace your roof, they would come out and take it off for $500 or something like that on the lease purchase ones. Okay? But if you buy them out and own them, there's a difference. Lease purchase and ownership is a big difference. If the town of Litchfield decided to put a battery pack to offset the cost of running the town hall and police station and firehouse, the benefit to all the taxpayers.
There's a lot of schools that are doing that on roofs.
That's right.
A lot of schools are, a lot of companies are.
Londonderry just started that.
It's a perfect application for roofs.
Parking lot.
For rubber roofs and stuff like that, because you got a main structure.
And a
You
lot of
still
people
be
are
able to
covering their
fix the roof.
parking lots with it now.
Yeah, didn't
So
your
now you have
daughter's
covered
class,
parking,
Troy?
but you have
Didn't your
solar
daughter's
panels.
class just gift the school?
Yeah, they did.
Solar panel?
Yeah, they gave him
The
some.
first couple, right?
Yep.
Which is pretty neat.
Yeah.
I think.
And he just bought it. I've seen it once or twice, and they take your parking lots and turn them into garages.
Yeah, covered parking, but it's all solar panels.
Yeah. Just don't get out there before it turns a certain way.
The ROI calculation isn't as quick as you think it is. Especially, in New England.
Mhm.
That snow turns off and slides down in your car, you're gonna know
Well, that's
about
the
it.
other thing. Now you have to clean them all
Yeah,
in order to get the efficiency out of them. So there's a maintenance portion to it.
Got to put them at a good angle.
you gotta
Yeah.
tip them high.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so that's so this.
Pros and cons to
So,
everything.
I'll be sharing the proposed budget with the budget committee that we've all seen. I also share with them the warrant articles, and they all know it's a draft and it's very early, but it gives them a heads up of things we're thinking about. And we'll be sharing the default budget with them as well.
Mr. Taylor, Andy Cutler likes him. He's been very good.
So I can go right on. If you have
This
any
is your
other?
administrator report.
All right.
Mr. Brown.
All right, just to make you aware, KBT Realty, which is the ownership of Mel's Funway Park. Mr. Lynch was served by the county sheriff's office. They've officially filed a tax abatement, and that has been received. I have given it to our assessors, and I have given it to our legal counsel. They were very much aware that it was coming, so it was not a surprise.
Except for me.
It's a result of a land use change tax. Just so you know, it was the assessors had picked up this year that some of the property that was in current use had been disturbed. They took out portions of it, and when you do that, there's a land use change tax that's assessed, and they're in disagreement over that. So we'll see where that goes.
Okay.
We issued a support letter to Natticook Lawn, supporting them and really thanking them, showing our appreciation for all the work that they've done on our fields over and above what they were expected to do. And I think that was well received.
Thank you for sending. It was well written.
Yeah,
Appreciate
good
it.
job.
Yes, well done.
Yep, and thank you, Ryan.
The public hearing CIP is this Wednesday night, 6:00.
Mhm.
So that's gone out. This week, working on we have an EPA stormwater permit every single year. The MS4, it's called. We submit an annual report to the EPA and give them an up-to-date on what we've been doing on our stormwater management. So pretty much every week I've been meaning to work on it, and things change. And so, but for the next 4 days, I'm really buckling down and that's what I'll be focusing on. So
We won't
if
bother.
anyone complains I'm not returning emails or phone calls, it's because I'm really focusing on the stormwater permit.
We should get a rebate on that this year because there hasn't been any storm.
No rain. I think you saw this evening when you pulled in the parking lot, we started our crack sealing and seal coating the 3 different parking lots.
You look good.
It all went well, except
was
for
quick.
they didn't finish striping the parking lots like they told me they were going to do. And I was a little surprised this morning when I showed up and the whole parking lot here was yellow taped off and nobody could drive into the building. So
I thought it was
I'm
nice.
driving down Hillcrest Road. I'm looking, I joked with the staff saying, I thought I saw no cars. And so I thought, well, wait, it's not Columbus Day. What's going on here? This is Monday, right? It's not Sunday.
I said the same thing. Driving by, I says, Did they get the day off because they painted the driveway?
It was the cars, you couldn't see them. They were parked at the fire station. So anyhow, it looks like they come out really good. And I talked to your road agent, Brown. He will be in here Monday night and give you an update on where he's at with those snowplow contracts. And he'll meet with those contractors. He was away on vacation all last week. He'll meet with the two contractors that bid on the sidewalks in the parking lot. And so he'll be prepared to talk to you Monday night about that. I also, just a heads up, working with a citizen with trying to get driveway, some kind of access to land that he owns off the end of Garden Drive. And in that discussion with him, which I think eventually is going to probably make its way back to the Board of Selectmen, depending on how the outcome is with the use of this right of way. But in discussions with him, he's already trying to get a logger activated to come in and do some logging. And Kevin actually had told me about it. And I asked Selectman Lynch if he could give me the contact name. And I've had conversation with the logger, and he's going to take a look at our property down at the solid waste facility in the highway garage. And he said that, depending on what you have and depending on this lot, it's possible he could come down, do some clearing for us, and we could actually get a check, for the timber. But he's going to come down and take a look at it. Again, the goal here is try to get some trees removed for no cost, so that the next step would be trying to figure out how now we start to remove that bank so we can improve the sight distance down there at the solid waste facility. So
Really affect my yearly adventures to the dump by I got more brush looking to the left. I look down the hill.
I'm sure it's all sand. You just gotta get the trees down. I think you can work that slope, and I think you can improve the visibility. And the last thing is, I know that I'm probably under Selectmen reports. We have Selectmen LaSalle and Chairman Weber that attended a meeting last Friday out at our Jeff Lane Fields. And I think you probably went down to Talent and visited.
I was not at the meeting.
No,
I was at
okay.
a different meeting here.
Anyhow, the rec department is working with the Defense Department. I believe it's the Air National Guard out of Pease, and they have a battalion that does earthwork. So they're looking to construct the parking lot for us and do some other work down there at Jeff Lane, as well as I think they would use other battalions to do some construction and electrical work. And they're looking at the back staircase at Talent, trying to remove and replace that. There's some legal notices that we would need to put in the paper, and I'm working with Mr. Spots, who's a volunteer on the Rec Commission, and getting these notices prepared and out there and published. So at some point in time, if there's a commitment, this will come back to this board and you'll have to formally approve it. But I know Selectman LaSalle was there, and I'm sure he can report to you on that.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that, of course, I had a history of utilizing this sort of effort at Talent Hall. And I thought that this was going to happen at Jeff Lane several years ago, and that fell through the cracks.
Yeah, we've been trying for 2 years to get the Army Corps to help out.
But it sounds like it's a true win-win situation. They use us as a training ground, and we get the benefit of all their expertise and equipment and everything. The Rec Commission, baseball, whatever, has to provide the materials, and it's a true win-win situation. I think we spent $13,000 on Talent Hall when we first brought it from boarded up to usable. And that was many years ago, but it was a true win-win situation. So I am tremendously I think Jim Spots is a real good guy to have on that. He has a military background, and I think it's gonna be a good deal.
Yeah,
He has
he's
a
been
couple
fantastic
ends,
at
huh?
coordinating with them.
He's, yeah.
He's done a really good job.
He has an
I
in,
want to
huh?
thank him for all his efforts.
What's that?
He has an in?
He has an in?
Yeah, he's in the military. He knows how to talk.
Well, a lot of us were in the military.
Yeah, but things have changed.
But I'd really like to thank Mr. Spots for all his efforts
Yeah.
on this and everything he has been doing for the town and for baseball out at Jeff Lane.
And that's all I had to report this evening.
No.
Okay, next on the agenda, Selectmen reports. Mr. Leary.
Budget starts up Thursday. Gonna get busy.
Your coffee.
I'm going to get busy.
Mr.
Irish
Lascelles.
coffee.
Not that it's necessarily selectmen specific, but we had veto day, which is typically the last day of the legislative session. On the ice at UNH, we had 22 vetoes. We sustained all 22 vetoes, which, depending on how you look at it, was plus or minus. The only excitement really was a number of legislators kneeled during the national anthem, and they found a bunch of empty beer cans in the back of one section of the legislators where they were sitting. So who knows, but, and then later on Wednesday night, the school board had a session where they asked the townspeople to vote to accept the extra money that the state provided, and that was approved. So that was good. And then Friday went down to Jeff Lane. I would like to just put something to the selectmen and the rest of us. Pat Jewett is not doing well.
No.
And I'm just wondering if we should at least I'd like for us to think about having some sort of a tribute for her. Something while she's still alive to thank her for her years. And I'm going to try to see if I can get a hold of her daughter. Do you have a contact number for Nancy? Do you know?
I don't have a Nancy. No.
But
Contact number from who?
Nancy, her daughter.
No, I don't have that one. Linda may have more.
Linda
Linda may have that.
Or Pat.
Correct. Okay.
I've tried calling Pat and I can't get through.
Okay.
But it just seems to me that, we owe so much to her. And if we could if she could appreciate it, I think we wouldn't just do it for us. If she would appreciate it, if we had some sort of a tribute, maybe we do it virtual, whatever. I could probably get some sort of thing from the governor, and we could just have people testimonial things. We could do some sort of a PowerPoint thing. And it just seems to me that, one of these days we're going to look in the Telegraph and she's going to be gone. And personally, I'll kick my butt if that happens without properly thanking her. And I just want to put that out there. And I plan to try to research on my own, but as a board, I think we owe it to her.
Great idea.
And I don't know what we can do.
I do know she's having lonely issues.
Oh, all right.
It's terrible down there.
She's trying to get people to check her out. And
Yep.
She wants to go home.
it's just that we all hear about, we put dogs to sleep and stuff, but my gosh, what a way to end your life. I just feel so bad for her.
I met a guy today leaving a restaurant with my mother. Him and his wife were leaving. He was he was assisting her because she was very slow. He looks at me, he says, "This is the worst part, the end of life." He says, "I don't want to be here for this." He says, "All my brothers have died young." He says, "Now I think what I'm going through, and he and his wife's going through, dying old is not good." He just said that to me. I was, wow, you know?
Well, it's a terrible thing, you know, and if we could do something just to show her how much we appreciated her years of service.
I remember her sending me the conservation class.
So Mr. Lynch, your report, please.
I gave her the report. It was on the mouse, and that's all we had. And then we went all over the CIP list, and that was about it. That's all we did in the same.
Why did you get served? That's what I don't know.
Because I'm special, and I was home, and a guy that did not want to go up any other roads up Route 3A.
And I'm
It
glad you
came to
stopped
mind.
at your house before
Before I
you get
didn't
to
get
mine.
to anybody else's.
I'm reminded of years ago when Ralph Bohm was a selectman. Somebody was trying to serve Ralph, and Ralph kept circling around the old firehouse with the guy behind him. And Ralph wouldn't stop for him. And this is a true story. Do you remember that, Robert?
I remember doing that stuff.
He wouldn't stop. And I don't know if the guy ever did serve him.
Probably not.
All my years of working in town government, the sheriff department has become a friend.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Is it Merrifield?
Okay. What?
Is it Merrifield?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loves to chat.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's one of the locals. He knows us. Okay. And he served us, and I smiled. Because he didn't give it to me personally because the door was locked and the doorbell doesn't ring. But we were in the house and I didn't see him. And he didn't come to the front door. He just went to the side door. He's sneaky. Stuffed it in between the
Sneaky.
door, and there it was when I went out. It was fun.
So I have a rec meeting tomorrow evening, and then we have the CIP public hearing Wednesday at 6 p.m.
You know, that is date night.
We had no items removed from consent. We had no other business. Our next meeting is Monday, September 28th. With that, we have no other items on the agenda this evening.
Public input. Public input.
Oh, sorry. Yes, being 9 p.m. Are there any members of the public that would like to give input?
We see Ben sitting out there.
Who's that mess?
That's Matthew.
He's a minute.
Okay, hearing none, we will close public input. Thank
So
you,
you got
Mr. Salas,
BS
for
and
reminding me.
MS out there.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Larry,
Second.
second by Mr. LaSalle's. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstained? Motion carries 5-0-0. Thank you for tuning in. 4-0-0. Thank you for tuning in, and everyone be well.
You're good at statistics.